Hello, hello. So if you're here with me today, we're going to be making the Miracle Heal Skin Cream. I'm going to show you how to do that right from your home. So if you order the kit, then you're going to have a jar of infusion oil, and I'll show you how we strain that and all that in a little while. But I just thought I would show you from the very beginning how we get this oil infused. It does take a little bit of a time, so that's why you're receiving the jar pre-infused. You also have a jar of shea butter. So what you need is your jars, one with the shea butter, one with the infused oils, and then you'll need to have one of those containers wiped out and clean to put your final product in. So what I like to do is maybe get your shea butter in a measuring cup or something so that you can use that shea butter jar to put your final product in. Okay, so Miracle Heal Skin Cream. This is such an amazing cream for so many reasons. So this cream works on arthritis, joint pain, inflammation, eczema, psoriasis, diaper rash, sunburn, or burn from heat from the oven or some kind of cooking burn, anything like that. Works on bug bites, cradle cap, dry, flaky, itchy, cracked skin, sunspots. It's improving for scars. It works on fungal infections, open wounds, radiation treatment. It's brightening and lightening and evening for the skin tone. So this is just such an overall great cream to use. I personally use this cream every single day, but it can be used just as needed, however you like. Another thing I really like about this cream is that it can be used on, in, everywhere. So it's not harmful for your eyes, your ears, your nostrils, your sensitive areas. It's also not harmful if swallowed. Everything in here is edible. So this is, it's not going to taste great, but that's a plus, that if your pets or your kids get a hold of it and swallow some of it, it's not going to be harmful for them. So with all of that said, all you're going to need today is, like I said, your 2 jars. But I just wanted to take a step back and show you guys how I got that infusion going. So the ingredients we use in the Miracle Heal Skin Cream: comfrey root. Comfrey root is great for targeting specifically joint pain and joint inflammation. So this is a huge active ingredient for the arthritis or joint and muscle pain. Now what I'm doing is I am using a jar. This jar is about, I believe it's 16 to 20 ounces. So I believe this is a 20-ounce jar. So I'm going to use a 1/3 cup, equal parts of everything. Your jar is smaller, but it's the same idea, equal parts of everything. So I'm going to use a 1/3 cup of this comfrey root. Again, this is useful for the joint pain and inflammation. Then we've got oatmeal, and this oatmeal is very moisturizing for your skin. It brings in a lot of soothing and moistening when it comes to dry, cracked, flaky skin, helpful for the eczema and the psoriasis. So sometimes they'll prescribe you like an oatmeal paste or oatmeal cream for eczema or psoriasis. So that's kind of the idea of using the oats here. So a 1/3 cup of oats, same amount as your comfrey root. Then we've got chamomile. Now chamomile flower heads are used to bring in a soothing, relaxing feel. So just like it's soothing and relaxing in your tea, it also is very soothing and relaxing for your skin. So just a 1/3 cup of chamomile flower heads. And then we've got calendula. Calendula is a flower, and calendula is also very good for moisturizing, but also has some anti-inflammatory, antifungal, anti-infection properties to it. So this is just a really great flower to bring forth lots of healing. Now this one, because the flower heads are so big, it's a little tricky to get a third of a cup. So I'm gonna have a heaping third of cup of this one. Again, just because they're so big and we really wanna get the benefits of the calendula. And then the last thing we're going to add to our infusion is the nettle leaves. So these are dried nettle leaves. And these ones, this is going to be helpful, again, for inflammation, also targets arthritis pain, anti-infection, antifungal. It's very soothing and relaxing for pain and achiness. So it helps with joint and muscle pain as well. And so this nettle, super useful. And all of these ingredients, I'm kind of giving you just the short version of all of their benefits. I really wouldn't have the time and space to tell you all of their amazing benefits. So while I'm giving you why I'm using them in this specific cream, it's not a comprehensive list of their benefits, right? So they have so much more to offer than everything I've just told you, but this is the specific reasons why I'm using them in this recipe here. Okay, I'm going to use today sweet almond oil. You have many different options for your oil that you can use to infuse, and your oil, your container will be written which oil is in there. I have a little underline and then I hand write what oil I'm using for each one, because each one has a different purpose. My two favorites, my two most commonly used, are sweet almond oil and avocado oil for different purposes. Sweet almond oil is what we're using today, and this is going to be super helpful for the dry skin ailments, so especially for the eczema, psoriasis, dry, cracked, flaky skin. Now, that's not to say that this won't help with arthritis and joint and muscle pain as well, because it's also an anti-inflammatory. It's just that it's a little bit more properties that support the dry skin ailments than support the anti-inflammatory and support the arthritis pain. So avocado oil is my other favorite one. That one's going to be super useful for open wound healing and infections. And then you could also use, say, a grapeseed oil. That would be nice for a little bit thinner oil, but still very moisturizing and offering a lot of benefits for the dry skin ailments. You could use a liquid coconut oil. That works really well for the antifungal properties. So each one's going to be geared towards more or less offering a little bit more service to one ailment. However, because of all these herbal ingredients, it's still going to work with all of the things we already listed: the arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, dry, cracked, flaky skin, diaper rash, cradle cap, infections, open wound healing, antifungal. So even though we're switching up the oils, it's still going to offer all of those benefits. So when you're filling these, after you've put all your herbs in, you're going to fill it with whichever oil you choose. And you'll notice that it kind of bubbles up and takes a little while for the oil to sink in and find all the space. You could even put the lid on and give it a nice little shake, and then see how much more oil you need to add as you hold it upside down for a moment and let it bubble up and create a little bit more space for more oil. So I'm just going to add the littlest bit here. So this is our oil infusion now. Now with this infusion, you have two options. You can either put this just sitting in your house, maybe near a window, like a windowsill. You don't want it to get too cold, but it's okay if it gets warm, right? So it can be in the sun in the windowsill, but we don't want this to be like in the refrigerator or maybe in an air-conditioned room. It should be room temperature or maybe a little bit warmer. Now, if you do that, then it's going to take about 2 weeks for the infusion to really gather all the medicinal properties of the herbs we've placed in this oil. Or your other option would be to take a crock pot, fill it halfway full of water, and then go ahead and place this jar inside of the crock pot. And you could do that for 3 days. You're going to rotate from low to medium, low to medium. That's how you infuse with the hot infusion. The cold infusion would be keeping it at room temperature for 2 weeks. So either way works, whatever works best for you. You could also just place this out in the sun for a couple weeks outside. In the summertime, that works really well also, just like the windowsill. So it's not going to be a problem if it gets too hot. The issue will be it won't draw out those medicinal properties and if it stays too cool or too cold. Okay, so there's that one thing I forgot to add here into our infusion is vitamin E. So we're just going to remove the lid one more time and add a little bit of vitamin E. So you want about a tablespoon. I'm just going to eyeball that, about a tablespoon. Your jars may be smaller, so 20 ounces is going to be about a tablespoon. If you've got a 6-ounce jar, then it'll probably be more like a teaspoon of vitamin E. And what that vitamin E does is just preserve it. This medicine lasts a very long time, this cream, so you can actually keep this on the shelf and use it for 3 to 5 years. And after that 3 to 5 years, it just won't be as potent. It'll still work, it's just not as potent. So no real risk of this going bad either. Such an amazing cream we're working with here today. I'm gonna go ahead and put this oil away now that we don't need that anymore. Now when you're straining your infused oil, you were gonna want a strainer, and I like to use cheesecloth. The cheesecloth is totally optional, but if you don't use the cheesecloth, you're gonna find a lot of sediment, a lot of herbs will end up in your cream. So it is kind of nice to use the cheesecloth to avoid getting all of that happening. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna take this right over your pot, whatever you're using, because we are going to heat it up along with the shea butter. And I'll talk more about that as we get there. But you just pour your oil slowly into your strainer and allow it to strain through. Again, you could use a crock pot, that would work fine. You're going to use that on medium heat if you're using a crock pot. And right now for this, we don't even need the heat on yet. Just going to get all these wonderful herbs out of this jar and into the strainer. Good. I'm going to get my bowl a little bit closer here. This is the bowl I'm going to use to mix the two after they're done melting. Now obviously this oil doesn't have to melt, but your shea butter does need to melt. So I'm just going to transfer this over here and then pick up my cheesecloth. This is another reason I like to use the cheesecloth, because then I'm going to squeeze out all of the leftover oil, because I really want all that medicinal purposes are coming out of this cheesecloth and out of these herbs. These herbs are holding a lot of oil, a lot of medicine in here. So we're gonna just squeeze this all out using your hands. And then with this cheesecloth filled with herbs, part of a Native American tradition is that you give back to the earth. So after I'm done harvesting these herbs, some of them grow wild on my property, like the calendula, chamomile. And then the nettles we harvest actually from property in Packwood. So these are all Pacific Northwest local. Some of the ones I've purchased here are the comfrey root, and I buy that from a place called Mountain Rose Herbs. It's a great place in Oregon. So the traditional ways, the Native American traditional ways, is that you give back to these plants after you've harvested their medicinal herbs. So my form of giving back is going to be these herbs that I'm using. I'm going to bring back to the plant or to a new plant and offer it at the base of the plant there. That will be my offering. Feed the plant with the herbs we're using. Other things you could offer, some traditional offerings are tobacco. Most people have heard of that. You could also just offer a prayer or a blessing. Good. Then next what you're going to need is your shea butter. So you have a jar labeled shea butter and one with the infused oil. So we just strained the infused oil. Now you're going to add in the shea butter. And honestly, it does not matter which you add to the hot pan first. It really doesn't matter. You want about equal parts, maybe a little bit more shea butter, depending on how thick you like it. If you really prefer not to have oily skin, then I recommend a lot more shea butter than oil. So I have provided you guys with a little bit more shea butter than oil, but that'll be a personal preference. If you felt like it wasn't, if you make it up and you feel like it's too oily, you can always just go purchase your own shea butter and heat it back up. No harm in heating it back up and adding a little bit more shea butter as needed. I love the shea butter because it's not as oily. It rubs right into the skin. And it also has many anti-inflammatory and anti-arthritis properties. So it really helps relieve pain, inflammation, and achiness from the arthritis. So this is another active ingredient for healing arthritis and joint and muscle pain as well. So we're just going to use all of that lovely shea butter that I had left. I was running pretty low. I may even need to break out my other container of it. So we're just going to mix this in. And once it gets mixed in a little bit better, I'll bring it closer and show you guys. But you can just mix and mix, like I said, low to medium heat. I'm going to keep my strainer here. Once we're done, I'll go ahead and strain it again because shea butter can be a little bit gritty. So you may get a little bit of that grittiness. Now the nice thing about the grittiness in the shea butter is the second you start to rub your hands together, that grittiness goes right away. So even if you have a little bit of grittiness, say you forget to strain it a second time, not a huge deal. It is going to really just rub in and soften up the second it gets warm. So mine still feels a little bit gritty, and then I will just plop it into my hand and it starts kind of oozing and melting away and really softening up that way. Just going to mix it up like you're cooking food. Sometimes you have to break the shea butter apart a little bit if it's cold. Mine was kept a little colder than I like, so I am having to break mine up a bit. But again, no harm in reheating this as needed. Sometimes that can also help with the grittiness, just reheating it more than once. Just breaking up these clumps of shea butter here and mixing it in. Now there's also like creamed shea butter out there. You can use that. However, I don't know if that's edible. I prefer to use all edible products. That way, if there's any accidents with any of my kids or pets, it's no big deal. But there is that lovely creamed shea butter out there that doesn't require quite as much melting time, and it's a lot less gritty. So it does have its benefits. I just am not sure what exactly is all in it as far as being able to ingest it. So that is why I like to use this organic, all natural shea butter. And I can bring this a little bit closer now. I'm just going to grab my rag. Let's see if I can show you guys this. So here is the mixture. Let me get it to the right height. And as you can see, there's a little bit of the white grittiness in there. That's what you're seeing right there. And otherwise it kind of looks like a yellow hue. That is from the sweet almond oil. Shea butter is kind of an off-white color. So our cream is going to be kind of off-white in color. Now, if you use avocado oil, it's going to be more green. Most of the other oils will turn out to be kind of that off-white, like a grapeseed oil or olive oil are going to be that yellowish off-white color, where your liquid coconut oil would be a little closer to white or the color of your shea butter, depending on what kind of shea butter you're using. Good. And this shea butter is a little bit more gritty than I like, so I am going to go ahead and grab another piece of cheesecloth and just strain it through there so that my mixture doesn't have too much of that grittiness in it. I don't have to worry so much about all the sediment. It's just going to be a little bit of the grittiness we're getting out of here. So cheesecloth, super helpful. I put some in your packet there. Again, totally optional if you don't mind a little bit of herbs in your mixture. And they're not going to harm you if they are in there. It just feels a little nicer on the skin without them is all. Okay, so that's looking nice and mixed up well. A little bit more stirring here. Definitely helpful to stir the whole time to really get it melty. The other thing you could do would be to take a whisk or an immersion blender, and you could mix those together. Now that can be done while it's boiling or while it's hot, or it could be done once it cools down. So now that that's all mixed together, like I said, I do want to go ahead and strain this one a second time. You can always reuse your same cheesecloth. So if you don't have another piece handy right here, then you can go ahead and just dump the herbs out of the other one and restrain it. So I pour that all through the cheesecloth, through the strainer. I'll take this off the burner now, actually. Good. And strain all that through. So now you can see a little bit more clearly the color. Shea butter wants to harden right back up. So because of that, you may have some white or some of that gritty look. Like I said, your options would be to go ahead and continue to strain until it's a consistency you like more. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour this through again. And this is a really shallow pan, so what I'm going to have to do is lift this up before it will all come out of my strainer. Good. Looking much better now, a lot less of that gritty white shea butter happening. But just because it's all here and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and strain that one last time into my bowl. Good. Get all the oil strained out. That's looking much better consistency now. And what I'm doing is just moving the oil around to strain it, because you'll find that the shea butter, like I said, it really likes to harden up pretty quickly. So because of that, you may have to rotate it around in the cheesecloth, so it'll get a little bit clogged. And then I'm going to go ahead and just blend this up a little bit. You could use a whisk, you could use an immersion blender, or any other blender system you like. Unplug this guy so that's not going anymore. Good. And then this is very hot now. So if you have a glass jar that came with your kit, so your glass jar will be fine. I have used plastic in the past and it gets nice and melted. So just being aware of that if you have something else. Now I do happen to have these really great, I'm making small containers, little sample sizes today. So I do have these really great double wall plastic ones that I've found. So if you can find a double wall plastic, that works really nicely for this heat. So you can pour that then into your measuring cup with a nice little spout. If you had, now notice I'm using a glass bowl here. You really prefer to use glass or metal versus plastic, because with the plastic it can really grab up all of the walls of the plastic of your bowl when you're stirring it. So I'm just going to pour this into these little jars. And that's that. That is how you make the Miracle Heal Skin Cream. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you have any questions or comments, you have my information. Always feel free to send me emails or Facebook messages. Also text messages are acceptable, so just get a hold of me if you have any questions or concerns. And I'm so happy you decided to join me today. Thank you.